Hey, everybody, Kevin here with Pursuing Pixels, and welcome back to another edition of Save It for the Cast, and you know the drill by now. As always, I'm going to be kicking the ball over to this week. It's all three of us, John, Randall, and I, and we're kind of talking a bunch of the stuff that John was playing. He was gone out of town for about a month on a work trip for like some training, so he was kind of holed up in a hotel a bunch of the time. He was planning on playing some Baldur's Gate 3, but we do end up kind of talking some Baldur's Gate. He played a little bit of it, so we talked some Baldur's Gate, we talked some D&D. He also dug into some of the games from our pal Aplove, so we talk about some of their stuff. We talk a little Bullet Heaven, a little bit all over the map, but yeah, mostly focused on like kind of some RPG stuff. But yeah, a little bit scattershot on all the conversation here. But as always, I'm going to kick things off here with some of the stuff that I've been playing. And I'm kind of going to lean into some of the demos that I've been firing up on Nintendo Switch lately. For whatever reason, I decided to fire up the ANTONBLAST demo. I was going to say again, and I can't remember if I've talked about this game on the podcast or not. I know I've made video or streamed the kind of original demo of the game, and then they released this new Dynamite demo when they announced that it was coming to Nintendo Switch, or at least like announced it on one of those Nintendo Directs, and then they had the demo available that day. And they added, it was basically the same stage that I had played before in the original demo, plus one more like kind of tougher stage. And then they add like a second character. I think Annie was the name that you can play as. Same basic move set. But basically it's like a, side-scrolling, not precision platformer, but like really speed focused, like almost like Yoshi's Island meets Sonic. It's very like Wario Land inspired, like very much like Wario Land 4, but like the more open-ended exploration focused level design, which I guess that is very much present in the Wario Land series, even in the older like Game Boy games, where Wario Land 4 being on Game Boy Advance. But yeah, even in like the original Game Boy and Game Boy Color games, there's like a little bit of like, non-linear level design. But this like really is like these two stages are just absolutely massive. There's so many different like secrets throughout it. And then what really reminds me of Wario Land 4 is like once you get to like the end of, or not the end of the stage, but like kind of like the not halfway point, because it's like once you've like kind of explored everything, triggered all the switches, or at least like done whatever you need to do to kind of activate things or whatever, then you got to kind of like race your way back to the beginning. Although you kind of have plenty of time, like it makes you feel like you see this timer ticking down, and I was like, oh my god, I'm scrambling back to the beginning, and I was like, oh man, I had like 3.5 or 4 minutes left. I don't know if it was quite that much, but at one point I looked up and I was like, oh man, there's like 4 minutes I got all day here. But I just really, really love like the speed of this game. Again, it's like really, really inspired by Wario Land. Also, like Pizza Tower is another game that's come out recently, indie game that's like very much like in this same vein. I know a lot of people actually, when they announced it on that Nintendo Direct, were kind of like ripping on this game. But this game's been in development for almost as long as Pizza Tower, if not. The Anton character was originally released, if you will, in the Anton Ball game from the same developers here, or Anton Ball Deluxe, which is more of like an arcade platform kind of situation. But I'm just really, really excited for this one, and it just plays great on Switch, looks great, really has like a awesome like kind of Game Boy Advance inspired art style. But to another couple of games, or few games that I played on Switch recently, I fired up the demo for BAKERU. I'm sure I'm pronouncing this wrong, but I saw that this is the new game from Goodfeel, who their last few games have been for Nintendo, being Kirby's Kirby's Epic Yarn, and then Yoshi's Woolly World and Yoshi's Crafted World. But this new game is published by Spike Chunsoft, and I checked out only like the first two like kind of core stages of the demo. I really like how the demo is broken up. Actually, you open it up and there's like 5 things to select from. The first one's just like the opening cutscene, essentially, or presumably the opening cutscene. And then there's like 2 regular stages, and then it says there's like a robot or some kind of like mecha fight stage, and then like a shooting stage. So I'm assuming there's like some different variety to the stages. But I was like, I'm just gonna play these 2 core stages. After that, I was like, I'm really into this. So I almost like don't even want to spoil what those might have in store for like a surprise or whatever. Obviously, it's just the demo, so I'm sure they're not spoiling anything too much. But nonetheless, I was like, I'd rather go in just totally fresh at this point. The only reason I haven't scooped it up just yet is because I'm kind of holding out for a physical copy. I think they've released it overseas physically, but I'm going to wait and see if they maybe release it in North America. But when I saw that it was supposedly like kind of like a spiritual successor to the Goemon or the Legend of the Mystical Ninja series, at least that's like the game that I'm most familiar with on Super Nintendo, Legend of the Mystical Ninja, that is. And you can really see the influence of that in this game. But on the other hand, it's kind of like a 3D platformer. There were some other games on the N64 that were 3D platformers in that series, but I've never personally really had a chance to play those other than maybe for like a quick minute or two on an emulator or something. But this actually felt a little bit more similar to like what I recently talked about on a Save It for the Cast, Penny's Big Breakaway. And it kind of felt more similar to that in level design, although you have like full control of the camera here. And again, there's potentially some different styles of stages here along the way as well. But I was just really, really into just everything about the game, similarly to Penny's Big Breakaway, but just like the energy, the like personality. You kind of play as this character that like has these two drumsticks, and you can even use like your drum as like a shield, but you're like running around. You actually use like the two shoulder buttons for like the left and right, like drumsticks or whatever, and you just can like combo between the two to like really kind of like more quickly smash through enemies. It's basically kind of like a beat 'em up platformer, but a little bit of puzzle platforming action. The stages were absolutely massive, kind of similar to ANTONBLAST. And again, this was just the demo here, so I'm assuming that the stages only get bigger as the game goes on. But I really liked how they like split things up in this demo here and like really let you just dive right into like a slice of life of each chunk of the game. But yeah, I'm just really, really excited for this one. Especially, I've been just such a huge fan of the games from Good Feel up to this point. So I'm really excited to see what they can do. I guess kind of spinning off or inspired by another series, retro series or whatever. But at the same time, they're kind of doing their own thing and outside of the, realm of Nintendo. So I'm really excited to check this one out at some point, beyond the demo here. And then I also checked out the demo for this new game called Crypt Custodian. I'm really just pumped that so many of these new releases have demos attached to them, because I tend to just hop on the Switch, fire up the new releases tab, or recent releases, I think it's called, and I'll just kind of scroll through. And I actually had seen some people posting about this on social media, actually with the developer of 2D and Top D, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken. Dietstreeby, I think, if I'm maybe remembering correctly. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, but they had posted that they were going to be checking this game out, and I'd seen it maybe one or two other times in passing, but the art style, when they posted about it, it was just really caught my eye. And then a day or two later, I saw, oh, it's released on Switch. Awesome. And there's a demo, so let me fire this up. And it's got like a really striking kind of hand-drawn art style, and it's basically like a top-down, Zelda-style game with some light combat. Although even in the early goings of the demo, I didn't even finish it all the way through, because again, this was another one I was just like, I don't want to spoil anything beyond this, because I'm just into this game already. But yeah, it's got some just really solid combat. You play as this like kind of cat that walks on your hind legs or whatever. You're just standing up. And you can jump, which is kind of something that's not typical in every top-down adventure game, which I really like. And you're basically, you got to jump over some gaps and there's, water, at least in this first area. Everything's kind of like floating on like every platform's like a floating little island, essentially, or pathway or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, just really, the art style again was just so striking. The music as well is just really, really upbeat and catchy kind of, but really like moody and mysterious at the same time, at least in this like opening area. And again, the combat was getting like, at first I was thinking like, okay, this is going to be a little more of like a puzzle driven game where you're just like, okay, I'm going to get this broom. And as soon as I saw the broom, I was thinking, I'm not really going to be able to do much damage here. I'm just going to be like triggering switches, maybe sweeping some things away. But like, as soon as you get that broom, you realize, I can just bust these statues up and I can just go to town. And then they start throwing some enemies into the mix. And, I pretty much immediately start wiping them out. And that broom definitely feels very powerful. And it's, you can jump and kind of smash down. There's a really cool, like, you're just button mashing essentially, but there's a really cool, like, kind of combat system or feel to the combat, if you will. And then I really love the sense of humor as well. Like you have to like break through some of these statues and like rubble or whatever to like get to the kind of area that you need to go to kind of get to the main, adventure part of the game or the first area. And you get to like you're kind of like settling your fate, deciding if you get to go to heaven or hell. And then they're like, wait a minute, you just broke up all those like you were perfect up until now, but then you just busted up all these statues. What were you thinking? And then they just make you go to hell or whatever it is. I don't know if they call it hell. But you go to this new area, and I just started exploring that a little bit and started getting my ass kicked with the combat. So I was like, okay, this game's going to throw a nice, healthy mix of both sides of the equation, the puzzle solving and the combat side of things. So I really was just into the vibes and really looking forward to checking this one out. It had a 15% discount right off the bat, so I'm kind of thinking about snagging it right away, but I might wait it out just because I have a million other games on my radar. And then one more game I just wanted to give a quick shout out to, although this is the game that probably caught my attention the most out of all of these. It's called Shogun Showdown. It had caught my eye before on social media, and I knew that it was out on PC, or at least in like some kind of early access form, if not like a fully, released 1.0 version of the game. But I saw that it was, again, checking that recent releases tab on Switch, saw that it came out, and I was like, oh, I didn't know this was coming out, and saw that there was a demo. So I was like, okay, let's fire this up. And at first I was kind of like not bouncing off of it, but there was like a really complex control scheme for like a pretty simple game. It's basically like a side-on perspective, but like sort of puzzle, strategy, roguelite, arcade game. You basically have like 5 tiles, if you will, or 5 places that you can stand on, and then you just move, right or left, or you can like wait to take a turn. It's a turn-based game as well. And then enemies start just like popping up in waves. And then again, there's only 5 spaces to move between. It seems like there's a bunch of different characters in this demo. You can only play as like the first character, which has their ability is like, as long as the cooldown is, I think it's like a 4-turn cooldown for this ability. But like if you're facing an enemy and you move to the tile that they're standing on, or like move into them, you kind of like swap positions with them. And then you also have to like worry about the direction that you're facing too. So like if you were to do that, you can't, unless you have an attack that allows you to attack backwards or attack like the tile in front of you or behind you. You would have to like use a turn to turn around. And then you're also like, it's not a deck builder per se, but you're like picking up these, they actually call them tiles, but I'm just going to call them cards or whatever, just because I keep calling the like places that you stand on tiles. But nonetheless, you basically like can pick as many, like you start with 2 at the beginning of a run, and then you pick up more as you go, and then you can put them in your like queue, and that also uses up a turn. You can reorder them, which doesn't use a turn, and then you can also like remove things from your queue as well if you realize, oh, you know what, I'm gonna back away from this enemy, and I can shoot this like ranged arrow to kill the enemy from a distance, because I don't need to use, both of these attacks to take them out, because they're already, took some damage, because the enemies can sometimes do damage to one another. So you can sometimes, like, for example, like with that ability to swap positions with a character, you might be kind of sandwiched between 2 enemies, and you can move to the right, swap positions, and then that enemy on the left is going to attack the enemy that's now standing where you were. So it's all like really strategic, but you don't have a lot of decisions to make, because there's only those 5 spaces to move between, and then everything you do, except for rearranging your attacks or whatever you want to call them, everything else costs a turn. So you really got to think about every last move. Including moving costs a turn as well. And you can also wait. Sometimes you do want to like, okay, I don't want to move or anything. Like I want to like just let this enemy do what it's going to do, or back away, or whatever the situation is. You might want to just wait it out, or let your cooldown recharge or something like that. But I'm really into the pixel art, the music. It's just got a really great, it does seem like it's going to have a little bit of grinding. Like right off the bat, you're going to be like unlocking more of those attack tiles to add to your deck, or add to like what can be available on any given run. So it is one of those games where like, okay, I don't really feel like I could maybe beat it on my first try. But you can also like level up those cards or attack tiles. I keep just mixing up all the terms here, so apologies. But I just really think there's a lot of depth to this game. I'm really curious to see what like it looked like there were maybe 5 total characters. So curious to see what the other 4 characters have in store. But yeah, just a bunch of awesome games that, again, Crypt Custodian and Shogun Showdown, I had no idea were coming to Switch. And then BAKERU kind of came out of nowhere. At least I wasn't aware of the game until I saw it pop up on like the Switch eShop as well. ANTONBLAST, that one I've been kind of waiting to fire up that demo for a little while. But just some awesome stuff. It's got me kind of like the juices flowing for getting excited for some new releases for the end of the year here. But yeah, it's more than enough rambling from me on this end. Not so short and sweet this time around. But let me kick things over to John, Randall, and I for a little more video games chit chat. And we'll catch you next week. And until then, take care.
I was gonna be good. I was gonna play Baldur's Gate, and I didn't. I just played.
I forgot that was one of the ones, because you did mention Disco Elysium beforehand.
Yeah.
Too.
So I did
I forgot
play
the other one was Baldur's.
a little Disco Elysium, but like, yeah, I played a bit more of Baldur's Gate, and it's just, I don't know what's necessarily different between it and Disco Elysium, because they're very similar. They're very similar, like RPG games of like, you know, you have not infinite choices, but you have an absurd amount of choices, which like shape the world around you. And like change your character, and like I'll get into that talking about Disco Elysium, but like there's something about Baldur's Gate that just like doesn't click for me like right off the bat.
Yeah.
And like I haven't learned the systems very well. I'm not like, and it's not like as satisfying to like get those systems under control of being like, okay, like what is a skill that, or a spell slot, like spell? What is one that I can cast any number of times? Like there's just so many like D&D stuff that I just don't know.
Yes.
And like, I'm sure like it's like a death of a thousand cuts. Like I'm sure I'll get there, like as I put in just more time into it. But it is kind of a chore, like starting from zero.
Agree. Yeah, that was my experience too. And, you know, Tina and I tried to play co-op, and, you know, even then splitting the screen down the middle with the amount of information and reading and like context about everything made that even more difficult. And it was already kind of inscrutable in the first place. I would imagine like your experience just as a single player. So I was like, oof. I know there's a lot here. They put a ton of effort into this. I'm sure there's just layers and layers and layers and layers. But yeah, it was tough to get into.
Yeah.
And like in the way that I've been replaying games a lot, like it was something where I was like, man, I bet this would be really cool my third time through, where I'm like, wow, I'm still finding new stuff, or like it would be a completely fresh game. But like I kind of do feel like I have to sacrifice a playthrough and just be like, I don't know what's happening. I'm just going to keep going and make bad decisions and like not have control over it, which is in itself a fun thing, but not something I was looking to spend all my time doing.
I was getting lost in that first like space station or whatever area a lot too.
Yep.
Oof.
That was big. Like and it's impressive and it's great, but it's also so much. And then at the very I've only gotten to the first like city, I don't know, town after that spaceship level. Like that's where I've gotten, and like that was so much. Like there's just so much going on and so many options and things, which is great, I'm sure. But like, I don't know. It was interesting.
Are you trying to play that just portably?
I was still doing it on the TV.
Okay, I was going to say,
is it like a Diablo style gameplay, right? Sort of.
No.
Or am I thinking of something else?
No, it's like hybrid, kind of, sort of turn based, I would say.
Okay.
In battle,
but it's still. Oh, but it's still you can play co-op. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's basically just D&D, but like automated and with a story like that's already written.
Okay.
And like that was the thing with like I've also been watching a Range Touch has a series on like Baldur's Gate that they started like 8 years ago, when they're like, yeah, we're playing through Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 and Icewind Dale and like that, and then Baldur's Gate 3 came out, and they're like, huh, I guess we're continuing this podcast.
Yeah, for a while.
Yeah, but then I was, so I was like listening to the original Baldur's Gate, and it looked so much, like it still looked really impressive on like how much extra content and like variety that there could be, but it's like infinitely more complex now in 3 than like, in a way that is impressive and just unbelievable, but at the same time, I was like, maybe 1 would be more my speed, just with the complete lack of options and content.
Yeah, it just feels like an old school, like hardcore computer RPG, I would say, but like with modern budget and visuals and put on consoles too, which is kind of wild, actually.
Yeah.
It's great. Like it's really like easy to navigate and like kind of like easy, like everything's radial menus or stuff. So like it's intuitive and like easy access. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't know what a cantrip is. Like, I don't know like core things about D&D that would be very helpful.
Yeah.
Same.
It does a good job. Like that's, I guess, where the like less elegant, less user friendly stuff is, because like they have all the information there. You just have to read it. You just have to go into like sub menus and tutorials and learn it. And like I didn't want to.
Yeah, and same when you're playing co-op. That's not really a fun way to spend time diving into sub menus for description context of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, no better way to just like skip over some like core gameplay mechanics. They're just like, let's just keep going. Let's just keep going. And just like, oh wait, what are we supposed to do here? I can't.
Why are all of my characters dying?
Yeah.
They never told me that.
Mm-hmm. Wait, there's a limited number of lives? What is this game?
They never told me that as I'm skipping over every text box.
I know.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm definitely guilty of that. Pretty bad.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get a little bit better, but with certain games, I'm just like, come on, cut to the chase.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get going here.
I did play a lot of games that I'm just never going to talk about because I had, well, you know, during the Steam sale or whatever, bought like 100 games that cost nothing.
Mm-hmm.
That I was just like, it's like, I want to give you money for an idea. And then I booted them up, played for like an hour, and they're like, I kind of get this. They're like this game was a good idea or a good concept, and I'm glad that I gave you money for it, but I don't need to continue playing this. And
yeah. I mean, that's even how I feel about a lot of the games that I like.
Yeah.
You know, but I played this, I like it, but like there's a bunch of other games I want to check out too. So like I don't know when I'm ever going to go back to this, if ever. So
yeah,
the games you want to check out, aka the games you always play. At least
yeah.
Anything stand out though that was like kind of like interesting? I mean, or like coolest of the bunch.
I mean, it was Aplove's stuff.
Oh yeah.
I'm trying to think of like, what were some like. That's the thing is like I'm only like remembering like kind of the mediocre ones that I didn't really enjoy, and I'm like, well, like I know I played a bunch.
Well, I do really want to play some more of Aplove stuff. I actually really want to play their game Rose Blight. I think that game looks really cool. It's a game that I know it has controller support, but it's not like actual controller support, and it has like a ton of controls. So it'll say like press spacebar, but like it'll be like mapped to like L2, you know, so you just have to like figure it out. Yeah. And it actually feels pretty intuitive, but I just like never got far enough into it to like really like give it a fair shake. But actually Turd Boomerang was talking about Solace Inc. being like one of his favorite like vampire survivors-esque bullet heaven games, just in the sense like he said like the grinding, you know, felt pretty good for whatever reason. He's like, I usually hate that in games like that, but I actually enjoyed it in this one.
And it's also like a Pikmin vampire survivor, which it rules. It's a very good element. Take on it.
Ooh.
Like especially bullet heaven. I love that term.
Bullet heaven.
Me too. Yeah.
That's
really
great.
Good.
That's very good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that.
But the other thing was Mikey and I have our own whatchamacallit, like little digs at each other, or like passive aggressive ways of showing love to each other, and he is purposefully like overpaid or mispaid rent for the practice space, just because he's like, ask me what it is, I will tell it to him, and then he will like pay it $5 more. And then I like, as a response, I started buying him games on Steam with the difference. So I got him Downwell and Donut County for $4.94.
That's fantastic. Great value.
Yeah, nice.
And I'm just like going through my like library for games that I already own and seeing what's on deep discount and being like, there you go, fucker.
Yep.
Does it automatically populate in their library? when you do that?
They have to accept.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's
what happens
cool.
if they don't accept? You get like a refund, or
You either get a refund, or if you bought it as a gift, then it goes back to your inventory.
okay, and you can like gift it to somebody else
Yeah.
theoretically or something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh, that's cool.
I have had things refund after I've after the sale expires, and then I'm like, well, I don't want to resend it to you at like if I bought it at like 80% off.
Right.
But that's a
Right.
Whole different value proposition at that point.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I don't know if that's true or not, but
Right.
like, you know, it's like there are so many sayings like that that are just like some
Wouldn't surprise me if it
crazy-
was something like that. Oh my god. Yeah.
Yeah, or even just like, kill two birds with one
Skin a
stone. It's
cat.
like, why do
Two ways
why do
to
I want
skin a
kill
cat.
any
Yeah, a
birds
lot of
with
ways to
any
skin a
stones?
cat. God.
Yeah, it's just
What are
like,
we talking
Jesus
about
Christ.
here?
That's one way to beat a dead horse. What the fuck?
Y'all are maniacs.
Yeah.
What are we talking about?
Oh man.